Good morning and welcome to Mental Health Matters with me, Dr Audrey Tang. It's a show where we take a deep dive into all things mental health and well-being. Today's guest is Dr Claire Vowell. She talks about the needs of parents in the workplace, and that's something which isn't often addressed, at least not for both parents. And that's what we're going to start discussing today. Jude, morning. Well, working parents, I know neither of us are parents, so we are going to bring our producer in shortly for this. But one of the things I noticed as a practitioner is that a lot of the talk was always about working mums. That's it, just mums.
Not parents.
Not parents.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
interesting.
and working dads have issues as well.
Well, absolutely. And one of my friends goes on Mumsnet quite a lot. And I think, oh, what about the dads? I don't even know if they allow dads. They must do.
Yeah.
I guess so. But it does sometimes seem to be more heavily weighed. And that's probably because naturally mums take the reins with the children, maybe. I don't know. But I think a lot of my friends share the responsibility and taking the children to the doctor or dentist or whatever. So
it's an interesting topic, and this is why we wanted to dive deeper into it, and our expert's going to help us unpack what's going on right now and how organisations can do better, actually, when it comes to supporting working parents. But we wanted to bring our producer, Sarah, in just to learn a little bit more. She's a working mum, which means her husband's a working dad.
Yep.
And so, Sarah, if you don't mind us asking you, what do we still not understand about working parents, or what is there for working parents, or what is missing?
When you become a parent, you realise that you have to start thinking about other people. So when you're working and you're not a parent, you literally get up, have breakfast, go to work, and you can organise your own time. But I think when you're a working parent, you've got to look after the children, you've got to take them to nursery or school or whatever, and it's just having that extra responsibility and extra thing to think about. It's not just about you, it's about them as well, and you've got to organise their lives a little bit as well.
Which takes time, doesn't it? As sort of, especially if they're very young. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, because it's one of my clients, they had a new dad in their workspace, so it was very new to that person as well. And the client was saying, actually, one thing we did do was give him a laptop to be able to work from home, because if you are responsible for a new baby, your mind's going to be there anyway. So even if you have to work late hours and whatever, if your mind's not on the job, is that a good thing? What's missing, do you think, when it comes to the support for working parents at the moment?
I think the flexibility a lot of the time. There's a lot of people that have changed their jobs just to try and get that flexibility. Because if you've got to pick up children, take them to nursery, if you can't take days off if they're sick, if you haven't got that support network where you've got other people that can look after them and can do things for you, then you need a job that's flexible enough to be able to do that. And I know there's lots of stories where people have changed careers, changed jobs, tried to get work from home jobs because they haven't got that flexibility. And I've heard lots of stories of things like children have been sick. I know someone that their child was in hospital, and their employer base said you can't take the days off unless it's unpaid.
It's just dreadful.
And the child was in hospital. They need their mother or their father or whoever. They can't just have a random person sitting there.
Yeah. And also you need pay.
Yeah, of course.
Because if you're dealing with a sick child, that's exactly when it's really important. This is
That's quite a big issue, isn't it? Because then you're with your child worrying about your work, or you're at work worrying about your child. Something has to be done, and it's done better in different countries as well. Yeah,
that's true. Well, coming up we have Dr Claire Vowell, who will be talking us through what's being done, what can be done better, and look forward to that chat straight after this.
Hi, my name is Dr. Constance Leland, the host of Level Up Circle, where I elevate the world through education, one learner at a time. Join me on Fresh Takes, Thursdays at 9 a.m. PST, right here on E360 TV.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters. Now joining us is Dr Claire Vowell. Her speciality is to be consulting with businesses when it comes to parents and parental needs in the workplace. Welcome to the show, Claire.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's great to speak with you, and thank you for giving us your time, because this is a topic that isn't talked about enough.
Hello, it's lovely to meet you, Claire.
And you?
Can you tell us a bit about the work that you do, please?
Yeah, I mean, Audrey's covered it in a nutshell. So I'm a psychologist and a working mum myself, and I specialise in supporting the mental health of working parents with one-to-one coaching, group coaching, and, as Audrey mentioned, sort of training, consultation, information for organisations.
It's such a key topic, though, because not enough people talk about this, and I know it's something where we've said it before, I said it at the start of the show, the focus for you is parents and not just mums, and I think that's really important.
So, we heard from Sarah. Can you tell us a bit more about the common psychological issues that parents experience, that working parents experience?
Yeah, I think probably some of the most common challenges I tend to see include feelings of overwhelm, stress, guilt. There is, and obviously a lot of anxiety that comes with that as well. But really what I see is that parents often feel they're not meeting expectations either at home or at work. And that's where the guilt starts to creep in. And when we see that guilt over kind of a period of time, it also starts to, come with those feelings of I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough. And that's when it starts to impact people's confidence as well. So like a whole ream of different things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have children, but I have experienced or seen all of those in friends of mine that do have children at various times. So employers maybe, or people that don't have children, what do you think that they don't understand about the issues that working parents have to face?
I think it's just really understanding the juggle, that parents are sort of trying to do almost two full-time jobs, I suppose. It doesn't make them any less committed to their job, but they may have particular circumstances that mean they can't do it in perhaps the way they did before children. I think that's probably key.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what Sarah started off saying, wasn't it? That everything changes as soon as you have children. What would be your key advice for working parents who struggle with the feeling of being torn?
Yeah, I mean, I think what comes with that, as we touched on before, is this sort of feeling of guilt, and that's the sort of, emotion that accompanies that. And I would always start with just reminding people that guilt is a normal, natural emotion. Lots of people feel the same way, and sometimes just that sort of sense of normalising and validation can be very helpful. But that said, we don't want that experience to define your whole experience of parenting.
No.
And there are things you can do to work on it. I think it's important to approach it compassionately. And I always encourage parents to just remind themselves that they are doing the best they can with the resources and circumstances that are available to them. And that can also be really helpful, reminding yourself that you are doing enough and you are doing the best you can. And I think what also comes into play is really looking at expectations. This comes up a lot, is looking at where your expectations have come from and setting realistic expectations. If your expectations are sky high, you are setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah, that's really important. If you're a perfectionist in your job and then you have a child, you can't always expect to be as a perfectionist as maybe you were, for example.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I love your word compassion there, and I'm going to be devil's advocate here, because what I sometimes hear from people without children is I can't book Christmas off, I can't book Easter off because the person with children is having that time off. And I don't want to say everyone needs that time and that space or whatever, but it's about understanding each other's needs better. Yeah. How do you help somebody do that who's quite fixed on, well, just because they're parents doesn't mean they should get this extra kind of holiday. I like holidays too.
I think it's a fair challenge. I think what we're aiming for is a culture of inclusivity and mutual support. And actually, you're right, that doesn't necessarily mean that working parents should have a free pass to book all of the best holidays off. So I think it all comes down to sort of encouraging open communications, encouraging all the employees to express their needs, and then working together to come up with an equitable solution. And some of that might be a little bit of give and take. Maybe Christmas is more important to one person, but they really, really want the half term off or something like that. So I think it's definitely about compromise. I also think, it's going to be much more pertinent in some industries than others. If you work in hospitality, someone has to be there to cover the busy New Year's Eve shift. So there may be times where you just have to accept that, you have to figure out your priorities, figure out what's going to be important for you and your family, and maybe thinking of alternatives. We have to accept that the job has its own demands as well.
I think, again, inclusivity and understanding your own priorities is really important. And that's not just important for parents or non-parents. It's just generally important for anyone who's working.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, Dr. Claire's going to stay with us, and we will be back just after this little word from our charity partner. A world without the arts is one without confidence, creativity and community, and yet funding has been reduced every year. Arts programmes have been shown to benefit social inclusion and well-being, particularly for marginalised groups, with projects fostering a sense of belonging, cultivating mutual understanding, and breaking down social barriers and isolation. Participation in arts programmes can help boost confidence and open doors to opportunities that may otherwise be inaccessible. Click Arts Foundation offers grants up to £2,000 for grassroots arts projects twice a year, with our Community Arts Experience trustees meticulously scoring each project on impact and sustainability. To date, we have supported craft and visual arts projects, dance, drumming for well-being, and preservation of heritage and culture. If you share our passion, not just for maintaining the arts themselves, but contributing to the many benefits it can bring, please consider making a donation to Click Arts Foundation registered charity. Welcome back to Mental Health Matters. We have Dr. Claire Vowell with us today, and she is helping us unpack the very important issue of supporting and working with working parents. So we've had some brilliant tips and things to think about already. One of the things that you mentioned is about priorities, Dr. Claire, and how can parents effectively communicate those boundaries with their employer so that their employer can help them when it comes to achieving that work-life balance?
I think, the word of the day is just communication, isn't it?
It really is.
When setting boundaries and establishing boundaries, clear communication is paramount. I think parents need to think about what their boundaries are. There's a piece of work to be done there, and then set clear expectations regarding your availability, your work hours, communications preferences. And I think the main point I would make, though, is one thing to think about what your boundaries are. It's another thing to state them. Both those things are really important, but it's also really important that you uphold those boundaries, that you manage those boundaries. So if you're perhaps a person that doesn't work on a Friday, but you regularly accept meetings on a Friday, those boundaries are going to become blurred very, very quickly. So I think it's at those sort of different stages. I also think things like being very clear about childcare commitments. I would always recommend putting them in your diary so people can't book meetings over them. And using things like your email signature to just remind people of what your working days and hours are. So some sort of practical things you can do as well.
I always talk about how it's not always psychological, some of these solutions. And I know Dr. Claire has exactly the same experience because we do a lot of comment for media and things like that. But someone always says, oh, so what are the psychological ways we do? Well, sometimes it's practical. Yeah. Sometimes we just need to put it in our email signatures.
Put it in the diary.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, absolutely right.
That's true, isn't it? Sometimes the most simple solutions are the right ones. But in terms of organisations themselves, what can they practically offer to help working parents? I mean, smaller organisations might find that more difficult than the larger ones that might have creches set up, etc. But what can you recommend to organisations to help?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true that larger organisations on the whole, can put more comprehensive support in place because, they have the resources available to them. And like you said, that could be on-site childcare, it could be more extensive parental leave, it could be providing one-to-one coaching for, parents returning from parental leave, things like that. But I think all organisations can sort of commit to prioritising flexibility, really working to support that kind of flexible work agenda. Open communications, back to our old favourite, but ensuring that people are able to talk about the challenges they face, the practical needs they may have. And I think, the aim is really to be working towards creating psychologically safe workplaces where, all employees, working parents or not, are able to talk freely, about what they need.
Yeah, very much so. We often hear, when it comes to psychological safety, reference to self-care in particular. And why is this so important, especially when it comes to working parents?
Yeah, I mean, it's important across the board, and it's something I talk about all the time with my clients. But I think the difficulty for parents is that they often prioritise the needs of their family, then the needs of the workplace, and all of a sudden their well-being is a really long way down the to-do list. And we should really never be sacrificing our own well-being. We know that engaging in self-care activities helps you to kind of recharge those batteries and means you're better able to cope with the demands of work and parenting. And I use the phrase, I mean, it's kind of a bit old hat, but I always use the phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think that's so accurate.
It's true. Excuse me. So for any working parents watching from home now or from their lunch break, what top tips can you give to them to kind of make that the dual parenting and working life running more harmoniously?
Yeah, just to sort of ease the situation. Number one would always be kind to yourself. Audrey picked up on this at the beginning, that idea around self-compassion. When you're a working parent, there will be compromises. And I think, you can't be in two places at once. Something will get missed at some point. And I think accepting that and making peace with that is really helpful. Second would be around setting realistic expectations. Again, we've touched on it. But really working to understand when good is good enough. That can really sort of help people. And then the third tip I would always give them is an ongoing process of managing boundaries, not just in the workplace, but also at home, and working towards that kind of holy grail then of maintaining that healthy work-life balance.
Great, thank you.
Really helpful, and thank you so much for your time, Dr. Claire. This has been really helpful, and if you've been affected by anything that we've been talking about and you want to ask Dr. Claire anything, do of course get in touch via the studio, and we can put you in touch in that studio at wellbeingmedia.org. Now we're going to go to our resident psychologist, Dr Meg Arroll, and she's going to be talking about another thing that we can do when it comes to the family, and that is getting involved socially together in volunteering pursuits. And then following that, our nutritionist and stress less living consultant, Felicia Jones, she's going to be at a local community food larder, not only showing us the work that they do, but talking about managing a lot of our day-to-day concerns with the cost of living.
Hello, I'm Dr Meg, and let's talk about community. So it can seem a bit odd in this day and age to think about why community is so important. We all feel very individual, and our unique characteristics and traits, they're incredibly important. But we are social creatures, so we have evolved to live and thrive within groups. Loneliness is very bad, not just for our mental health, but also our physical health. There is research that shows that chronic loneliness is as bad for health as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. So there's lots of good reasons to really become embedded in a community, in your tribe, as it were. But with all this technology, it can actually be quite challenging to meet people face to face and to really get that sense of community, because it's very important that we do have some in-person interaction. Of course, this could start online, to find things that we have in common with other people. And what we tend to do is look at our common interests, as it were. So say if someone likes film, to join a film club, or if someone likes books, join a book club, those sorts of things. But there are other ways as well. And one thing that I like to focus on are our core values. And in my book, Tiny Traumas, there's a list of some of these values that can be helpful to really think about in more detail. But you do not have to go to the book. You can simply search online for a list of core values and to think about what values are really incredibly important to you. When we do find people who share our core values, you oftentimes get that feeling of you've just clicked with those people. They're on your wavelength, they're on your level, and you feel like you've known them for a very, very long time. So some of these values may be, say, creativity. And in that respect, if something like creativity is very important to you and your sense of self, then it may be that you want to explore perhaps some arts classes, perhaps some dance classes, or even comedy classes. Those sorts of things. And they don't have to be formal classes either. You can just go to interest groups, or even re-engage with people that perhaps you haven't had much contact with in a long time, because that does happen in life. Life does seem to just get away from us a little bit. So to think about, were there any friends that just maybe you haven't connected with in a while? I love the saying about friendship, that it's either for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And perhaps you had a friend that you had an amazing season with, and because of life events or just moving in different directions you haven't spoken to in a while, you can re-engage with that person, because it's very likely that you had some core values in common. And it is so important to feel that social connectedness that we say, because that brings to us such a depth to our lives. And in that way, we can feel that life is incredibly fulfilling. And so when we do find our tribe, they can build us up, they can really champion us. And then with that sense of community, there is not such a need to fall into negative or maladaptive social groups or behavioural patterns. So my tip is to focus in on your core values. And once you do that, you may well find that those click moments are more frequent. Thank you and take care.
Hi there, this is Felicia from Stress Does Living, doing another segment for Mental Health Matters, and today we're talking all about volunteering. I don't know if you know this, but in 2021 the government said that 16 million people in the UK volunteered. 16 million people, that's staggering, and that's 34% of the population. 34% of the population giving their time and their energy to organisations and not getting paid for it. And we know that money isn't everything. And when we talk about volunteering, that really comes to play, because volunteering does so much for us. It could be that you're going through a career transition and you're thinking to yourself, I want to try something new. You're not sure if it's going to be the right thing to work in. So volunteering can be a way to try that. It could be that you've got time on your hands and you have a passion for something, but you don't want to set up your own organisation. So you could volunteer for somebody else. You could be doing something like gardening. You could be doing something like working for one of your favourite charities as a volunteer. It could be that you're coming up to retirement and you think, I absolutely love working. What am I going to do when I finish? Well, volunteering is a great way to use those skills that you used at work in the capacity to help other people. And today I'm at one of my favourite opportunities to volunteer at. It's an organisation called Sophia, and it's a food larder. Now you get food larders and you get pantries all around the country, and the things that food larders do is that they enable people to have dignity by using food that would otherwise go to landfill for £3.50. Simply £3.50 a week, people can get things like cereals, they can get things like brioche and beans, lentils, tinned goods, but they also give away fruit and vegetables absolutely free. Now, Sophia is an amazing organisation, as I said, and they cover Milton Keynes and they cover Oxfordshire. You can actually volunteer through the larders, but the other thing that they do is they help young people develop skills and enable them to get back into employment. So we know that volunteering is good for so many reasons. If you're doing something like this, setting up, you've got the physicality, that's really good for your body. But actually, volunteering also helps with our cognition. Simply connecting to another person is a way of actually supporting them, but it also really helps to support us. And I had the privilege today of speaking to some of the volunteers and finding out why they volunteer, what they get out of it. And there's all different kinds of things. Some of the volunteers here are friends, so it's a way to catch up with your friends. Other people would be making new friends, and then it's actually helping the people that are coming in and actually using these facilities. So one person said they actually love volunteering because they know that they're contributing to the community. And this project's been going for 3 years, so for quite a while. So you get the opportunity at food larders, particularly we know about the cost of living crisis, you get the opportunity to buy an array of goods that would cost you a lot more. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times as much for £3.50, and that gives you 10 goods. For £7, 20 different goods. So you might be in a situation and think, I haven't got time to volunteer. That's fine, it might not be now, but it could be that you, as I said, coming up to retirement, you want to think about what are you going to do to keep active? What are you going to keep doing to get your mental health in the state that you want it to be in and keep it being in that state? Because one thing that we know is as people leave work, they can get into patterns of not doing that much and get lonely. Volunteering can be a really great way to help that. Or if you're going through a transition, a work transition, you're not sure what you're going to do next, volunteering can be a really great way to help you to test out the waters. So whichever thing that it is that you're thinking about, I'd say, think about volunteering. Have a look in your local community. Have a look at community websites and find out if there's an opportunity for you. So Felicia from Stressless Living, reporting for Mental Health Matters, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Today's Business Boost, I thought I would talk about the 5 pillars of happiness as outlined by Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology. They're known by the acronym PERMA, P-E-R-M-A. And these are things that you can look at day to day as you go about your day at work. And I'd like you to think about P, positive experiences. What have you experienced today? Maybe it was something as simple as someone held the door open and smiled. Maybe it was someone who said, hi, how are you? Maybe it's someone who checked in on you. Maybe you were impressed with somebody else's work. Build up those positive experiences. And one really important one, the thank yous. Gratitude. If someone has thanked you, don't just dismiss it. Hold it and enjoy it for that little bit longer. So that's your P, positive emotions. E is engagement. When are you actually really engaged in what it is you're doing? And in the workplace, if it comes to a point where you're thinking, I really don't enjoy what I'm doing day to day, think about what you do enjoy outside the workplace and see if you can build some of that into your day. So if, for example, you like mentoring and coaching and you don't have that opportunity in the workplace, what you might do is start a five-a-side football and start coaching that and start organising that and start mentoring some of the younger players. There are ways of building in the things that you enjoy into your day-to-day, even if they're not already there. Healthy relationships. And this is, we don't have to love everybody that we work with, but it's helpful if we can kind of get along with them. And one way that's really helpful to understand this is by recognising what each department does. When you're in the workplace, so many people work in silos, little groups, and you know very well what you have to do, but you don't understand what everybody else wants. And if you don't understand what everybody else wants, when they send something back saying, well, it's not done in the format we're asking for, the immediate reaction is, and you get annoyed, then they get annoyed. And there's no point keeping that vicious cycle going. If everybody sits down and explains, this is what we're doing, this is when we need the information, this is why we need it in this way, you don't have to be an expert in their role, but at least understand what it is they are needing from you. And that can help when it comes to building healthy relationships. M is meaning. Finding meaning in what you do. And this is where things like CSR, corporate social responsibility, can come into it. If you can find some sort of meaning in just who you're reaching out to when it comes to your clients, your customers. If you can see that one person that you've helped, if you can see that you are making links with other people such as universities or younger people who are coming into the workforce, that can be really helpful because it also means you're keeping them in the town. You're not getting this brain drain going out. And lastly, it's a silly one, but it's achievements. The A stands for achievements. And this can be, I like to do this little showreel meditation, which I'm not going to take you through now, but what I ask people to do is to think about a big achievement in their life, and everyone can think of one, and that's great. But then I ask you to think about an achievement that you had in the last month, in the last week, in the last 24 hours. And then everyone starts thinking, oh, those achievements are getting smaller and smaller. Yes, but they're still achievements. And for some people, just getting out of bed can be an achievement, and that's okay. That's important to recognise. So when you do this exercise, yes, think of the big stuff. We can all think of the big stuff, but also recognise the small things as well. Welcome back to the last part of Mental Health Matters. Lots to think about today.
Yes, lots to think about. And it's not our area of expertise.
No.
Although we have dogs and sometimes...
People don't like...
No, it's not the same. It's not the same.
No,
They're not our children. However, sometimes we have to go to the vet.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get a call from home saying, come home because something's wrong. That happens. That happens. So it's a real thing. But obviously, it's not in the same league as children. I get it.
I know, I'm only joking. And I know what you're saying. It is about realising people have other responsibilities outside the workplace. And that's important for everyone to recognise, no matter what. Because whether you've got children or dogs or
a mother or a dad or...
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so much going on, and work is just one part of someone's life. So some key tips to take away. There's so many actually.
There's loads. I think the key thing that stood out for me is if you are a working parent, not to put too much pressure on yourself because you can only do the best you can and you are doing the best you can. I think that was the key thing that came out. And then for me, not having children is to, not that I didn't and don't sympathise with colleagues that have children. I do, obviously, and I always have. But I don't always put myself in their shoes. I don't always see it from that point of view, and that actually you have a job that's really important, but you have children and they've got to be the priority. They have to be.
And for me, it's two things, and one thing's just related to what you were just saying, is for working parents to recognise that it is okay to think your job is important. Your job is important too.
Yes.
And if it means something to you, that's okay.
Of course.
It's that guilt thing coming out again.
I guess so, yeah.
So that's important for me. And also communication. I know that's the word that Dr. Claire was just using all the time, but it is okay to communicate your needs, whatever those needs happen to be.
Yes.
And the worst part is, and this relates to something that a previous guest had said, this was Juan Du, who did the mindfulness enhanced calligraphy with us. And we don't always want to say certain things. We don't always want to say, oh, I'm a carer, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, because for whatever reason. But sometimes those parts are going to take over what you are thinking about and what you're doing all the time. And so I think maybe you don't have to tell everybody, but find the right person to tell.
It's actually really true. Yeah. And that's the complete opposite of what a manager told me about 20 years ago now. No one's interested in your home life. No one. You're here to work. That's all we talk about. So that's always been in the back of my mind. Don't let anybody know that there might be something difficult going on at home. You know, carry on no matter what. So that's the mantra. So actually, that's really quite interesting. Yeah, you don't go around telling everyone, but you mention it to key people.
And this also relates to one thing about mental health first aiding. Now, it's just a conversation I've had this week, which is why I bring it up now. A lot of businesses are training mental health first aiders to be first responders if somebody has an issue they want to talk about. However, the question has been raised more than once of, but what if I don't like the mental health first aider?
Oh, that's a good point.
And it's absolutely true. That's why I kind of say maybe if there is a trusted person to talk to, that person may then have to tell the correct person who can deal with it.
Yes.
But as long as you understand that that is going to be the chain of command in that way, you don't have to tell the designated person if they're not necessarily the person you have the rapport with.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's almost like you've got your chosen, not mentor, but somebody that you will have that connection with, that they can then feed up to the relevant person. And again, that comes down to organisation, company policy and communication again.
Yes, exactly. Word of the day, communication. So this week, have healthy communications, and we'll see you next week.